Uncertainty and doubt are part of the human condition. At some point in our faith journeys, we all face perplexing questions about God, faith, scripture, suffering, the meaning of life. When our questions go unresolved, it's tempting to either paper over them in fear or be paralyzed in frustration. We grasp for packaged answers rather than living in the tension. But what if confronting our questions head-on was meant to lead us into deeper intimacy with God rather than sever it? What if leaning into doubts with humility expanded rather than restricted faith? Throughout the Bible, we see God honoring sincere seeking and probing. He dignifies the very process of questioning by meeting us there in relationship, not just resolving and closing the case. Christ even invites a doubting Thomas to literally examine his wounds up close. Yes, arriving at answers matters. Mature faith seeks understanding. But maybe more crucial is allowing questions to pry open our hearts to encounter and know God more, rather than just solve a theological puzzle. Imagine if questions became prayer, opportunities to explore mystery together with the question behind all questions. If uncertainty tilled soil for stronger roots of awed dependence, rather than feeble shoots of circumstantial belief. This is my longing for our church in seasons of questioning, that we cling more tightly to the answer giver than demanding answers. That we let his wise, unchanging character anchor us when little else seems steady. May questions lead us not to doused flames, but ignited pursuit of Christ. For he sometimes withholds information, so we'll seek his face. Let's walk together with grace into growth found only in the seeking. If I'm honest, my natural tendency when confronted with faith questions is to rush past the uncertainty as quickly as possible to find some pat, tidy answer that resolves the tension. I gravitate towards apologetics that offer intellectual certainty and talking points to win arguments. But while right answers matter and studying scripture is essential, I've found some of the most profound growth in my walk with Christ has come not from arriving at confident solutions, but wrestling earnestly with doubts and unknowns. Times when I had to loosen my grasp on airtight explanations and simply cling to God in the mystery. Seasons when core truths I staked my life on suddenly seemed flimsy in the fire of adversity, when theological paradigms proved inadequate for addressing crushingly raw human pain. When I had to admit I don't know and relearn childlike trust from that humble starting point. Looking back, embracing uncertainty expanded my capacity for awe, prayer, and deep dependence on Christ, so much more than defending ironclad doctrine ever did. My desperate questions, spoken honestly yet reverently, opened doorways into closer relationship with the question behind all questions. God has pushed me to exchange a faith defined by bullet points for one established through unrelenting pursuit of his face, to value mystery encountered over riddles solved, to let doctrine live in tension with things like lament, paradox, and longing for redemption. Of course, arriving at answers has profound value too. Studying scripture, reason, and history are so important. My goal isn't to permanently wallow in uncertainty, but organically live through it into God-ordained understanding. My prayer is this gives hope to those exhausted from hiding doubts or fighting for solubility. May you find refreshing grace to let questions become conversations drawing you to Christ. As Christ's church, I believe we are called to cultivate communities where people's questions, doubts, and unknowns are welcomed rather than silenced. Where we make space to think out loud without fear of judgment or categorical answers. Of course, we uphold God's flawless revealed truth in Scripture. Yet humility acknowledges there are secondary questions where godly leaders differ, and still deeper mysteries known only to God currently. Rather than rushing to package up every tension, we should foster environments where people's raw, unfiltered seeking is dignified, where leaders model faith as an ongoing journey toward truth, rather than just instructing fixed propositions. Within safe parameters, we need to let the messiness of I don't know lead us together into greater awe of what we do know. God's steadfast, loving character that never changes. Imagine if our small groups and sermons normalized speaking doubts aloud to invite Christ's presence into the tension. If our worship sustained lament and longing for redemption alongside celebration. If we bore each other's burdens without demanding definitive answers. As a church leader, I recognize we can subconsciously pressure people to parrot responses and hide their tensions to project certainty. Yet fruitful learning about God often requires unlearning in community. Friends, only united by Christ do we become strong. Our witness is less in proclaiming finished truth than relentlessly pursuing the truth giver together through seasons of growth.
Let's make space for each other's sacred questions, not rushing to replace seeking with systems. For in the seeking, we meet God.
If we survey the arc of Scripture, we see God consistently honor sincere, humble seeking from His people. Questioning done in the right spirit always draws us deeper into truth and relationship, rather than severing it. Consider the book of Job, where nearly 40 chapters are devoted to wrestling intensely with suffering and the character of God. Job's candid lament led him to encounter God in awe. The book closes not with a bullet point thesis, but God's majesty exceeding our comprehension. When Jesus' disciples ask him pointed questions, again and again he uses these tensions to unfold greater understanding of God's kingdom. Christ seems to prize the seeking heart over prepackaged answers. In fact, relationship with God seems designed to frequently bring us to places of mystery beyond our ability to fully resolve. As we process these unknowns together in community, it exposes where we've made idols of explanations and drives us back to clinging to Christ. The seeking process itself teaches humility. In tension, we confront how small and fallen our perspectives are. Yet we gain confidence that if we search for God wholeheartedly, we'll encounter His faithful presence. Friends, when questions arise on your journey today, receive them as loving invitations from Christ to seek Him. Be patient in the unknown, trusting He will provide just enough light for each step ahead. Lean in close to the shepherd who walks with you through valleys of uncertainty. May questions make us wine rather than vinegar. Soften us to experience more of God's grace. Expand the containers of our hearts to receive fresh revelations from Him. Let your unknowns become adventures with Jesus into yet uncharted beauty. His ways are higher still. With much compassion for the journey, I encourage you to reflect on what questions, doubts, or tensions you're sincerely wrestling with right now. Where are you stuck between Scripture's truth and painful lived realities? Don't shy away from boldly bringing these before God. Relax your grip on airtight answers for a season. Pray the Psalms. They model raw, unedited cries from the soul. Lament is woven throughout these sacred songs. Consider sharing your unrest with a small group or trusted leader. Where appropriate, ask God to open up conversations with those who disagree with you. Listen well. Lead with curiosity over categorizing. When certainty feels far off, take comfort that God still meets us in uncertainty when sought wholeheartedly. His affection is not contingent on perfect doctrine, but persevering prayer. Listen for Christ's gentle guidance into nuance that amplifies beauty. Remember, He cherishes intimacy with you over informing fully. There is grace in the not yet knowing. Of course, continue studying Scripture, researching history, and reasoning carefully, but hold conclusions loosely when unclear, tethered to God's anchor of love. May your questions breathe life by drawing you into prayerful pursuit of Jesus. Out of anxiety's grip, find freedom to wonder. See each unknown as invitation to enjoy more of God together. Let your tensions lead to growth. Church family, what if believers became known for walking together through seasons of questions and uncertainty with humility, grace, and trust in God? What if outsiders observed Christians as fellow learners, rather than just teachers pretending to have everything figured out? When we model faith as an ongoing journey toward truth, rather than just preaching fixed dogma, it reflects God's patient heart to guide our understanding. Our example gives weary thinkers permission to not have perfect answers yet still belong. Imagine the magnetic draw of communities that lean into mystery together while anchored to God's eternal nature, that welcomes sincere doubts and process tensions without demanding rushed resolution. Within healthy parameters, may we foster environments where people's sacred wrestling is dignified and given room to breed insight, where leaders speak more about their own journeys than just instructing doctrine. Of course, we ground everything in God's authoritative word, but Scripture often reveals truth over time, in community, through wrestling. We can teach the Bible's core tenets while allowing some secondary questions to marinate in healthy tension. When the process of seeking truth together points people to Jesus more than just disseminating information, His light shines. May our churches value relationship gained through questioning. Friends, take heart. Certainty grasped too soon can diminish intimacy with Christ, but uncertainty walked through can magnify Him. Let's cling to Jesus together through seasons of not yet knowing. Our seeking draws us to the one who fully knows. As we bring our reflection to a close, I hope you're encouraged to let your questions and unknowns propel you into deeper relationship with Christ rather than being obstacles. While conclusions on complex matters have great value, sometimes getting the exactly right answer matters far less than relentlessly pursuing the answer giver. Certainty grasped too soon can limit awe. So relax your grip on airtight answers for now. Take your unresolved tensions to God in prayer. Tell Him your doubts, laments, sorrows, and fears. Let your seeking draw you into conversation, not push you away. Rather than hiding questions to project faith, acknowledge them in community. Allow them to deepen intimacy with Christ and each other. Remain patiently tethered to God's anchor of faithful love while waiting for clarity. Imagine if your questions became sacred invitations onto new frontiers with Jesus rather than threats to avoid. If not yet knowing expanded your capacity for wonder. If uncertainty pried your heart open to receive more of God's mysteries. Friends, the invitation is to let your questions lead you to Jesus over and over again, to encounter afresh His wisdom, compassion, and understanding that surpass human comprehension. Keep seeking, asking, and knocking. The journey Himself will meet you there. He is the destination our deepest questions point to.